Hello, today we're going to talk a little bit more about lighting. Lighting has to do with, lighting includes the ambient light or the light naturally present in the scene, but it also is the electronic lights that we add, such as a flash. And combined, the two can change the color that we would normally have in the scene. For instance, see how the skin tones in this image look different than in here? Of course, they're brighter because of the flash, but they're actually a little pinker, a little more orange, they have a little more color to them. That's because the flash was added. Every time you take a picture, your camera is trying to establish the white balance. The white balance means that they're trying to see the color white with no other color in it. Because with those added electronic lights, we're changing actually the perception of the color in the scene. So, and different types of light produce a different cast to the colors that we see there. And it's not just white, it affects every color in the rainbow. Another type of light we use is reflected light. Reflected light is light bouncing off of absolutely any shiny surface. In the photos, you can see them using a photographer's reflector, and it adds that nice subtle light that's hitting the front of her face right there. It's usually a nice gentle light, so photographers love to use that to add a little extra interest to their photographs. Now we're going to talk about positions of light and the patterns they can make on the people who we are photographing. The first position is called front lighting, and that means that the light is coming from the same direction as the camera. It does not necessarily mean we're looking at the front of the person, just that it's coming from behind the camera toward the subject. Here's an example of front lighting. Backlighting is light that comes from behind the subject toward the camera. See how that's behind him and it's aiming this way? Here's the camera. Backlighting can produce almost like a silhouette effect. And it's often used in combination because it can do interesting things like this. See how it's picking up the edges of this fur and making them glow? That's a typical use of backlighting. For example, in this picture, we've got a little bit of front light hitting the front of his face so that we can see it, but we also have this real strong backlight picking up these details of his silhouette so that he's coming forward out of that background that's black. This is very commonly used in movies and TV shows. They use this because of its drama. Side lighting is another type of lighting, and it means that the light is coming perpendicular or across where the camera is. Here's the camera, and it's shooting the person this way, and the light is coming across. Oftentimes, it's illuminating the side of the face and leaving the other side of the face in darkness, but it doesn't have to be. The person can be facing in any direction. Side lighting has really dramatic effects on the face, and if it's done right, you have part of the face nicely illuminated, and the other part has this little triangle of illumination and hopefully a little sparkle in the eye. Okay, that's typically what they're going for when they're doing side lighting. Here's another example of split lighting. We can see his face is side lit here, but we also have this strong backlighting. Another example of side lighting. One other thing I want you to notice about side lighting is how dimensional it makes the face. You can see the roundness of his cheek. You can see the roundness of his chin and how his neck is kind of craned up like that. You can see the depth and roundness of his forehead and how deep in his eyes are compared to the bridge of his nose. Side lighting is about depth and it's about texture. You can see the texture of his pores. On this guy, you could see the texture of that beard, even where it's a little darker. Okay. Side lighting is about depth and texture. Flat lighting, on the other hand, is about the absence of depth and texture. It's light coming from many directions. For instance, here's our person. The light is being shown into a reflector on the left, into a reflector on the right, bouncing onto our subject, and also coming from behind the camera. It's also coming from behind the camera from a nice, what they call a soft box. Those big lights, they're usually really big and they're just all illuminated. It's actually a small light bulb in there, but a very big box to diffuse the light and make it real soft. See how it's hard to see the depth in her face? We do have some shadows, of course, but not enough to describe the texture of her skin, not enough to really see the depth that her eye sockets are compared to the nose, not enough to pull that nose and put a shadow under it where the lip is. This is flat lighting. It tends to be very flattering for people who are older or people who have like a lot of texture on their skin. If they don't want that seen, flat lighting is a great way to even out skin tone and texture. It's very popular with portrait work as well. So a lot of people will go and get their family portraits done this way. Even in landscaping, you can have flat lighting. You'll notice the shadows, like see the shadow of the apartment right here compared to the shadows here. Look how deep these shadows are compared to here. This is more flat lit. And an overcast day will give you this flat lighting. Another thing to be aware of is a hotspot. When we use a flash on our camera, sometimes it can create these hot spots or too much light in one spot in the photo. For instance, you see on her cheek there, that bright hot spot, and on the tip of her nose, that bright hot spot. It's too bright, and it gives that kind of sharp, annoying sort of a hot spot look. It almost makes that part of her face look overexposed. Or, I'm sorry, look underexposed. And here it is without that hot spot. Next, we're going to talk about common lighting patterns in film, and that is for our next chapter. For now, go on the classroom and find the lighting assignment worksheet. It's working on using front light, backlight, side light, and comparing them. Now that you have a little background in what they are, you can try to replicate them and compare the outcome.